Here's example 2. Consider the following argument. If Zug remembered to do his chores, then things are clean but not neat. If he forgot, then things are neat but not clean. Therefore, things are either neat or clean but not both. We are again going to do two things. We are first going to symbolize this argument in TFL, and then we are going to construct a truth table which is going to allow us to assess its validity. So let's start with the symbolization, and step 1 in the symbolization process is to find a paraphrase which is going to make the logical structure of this argument transparent. So here I included in the top line, in each case, the original sentence that was given to us, and then behind the blue arrow, the paraphrase that I'm suggesting. We have 3 main sentences. The first sentence was, if Zug remembered to do his chores, then things are clean but not neat. And the one thing that I did to paraphrase the sentence is I did notice this word not, which I know represents a negation, which I'm going to symbolize by means of a negation sign. And I just paraphrased this word not by means of the longer phrase, it is not the case that, simply to remind myself that this is going to be symbolized by means of a negation sign. And then what's being negated here? Well, it's the whole sentence that things are neat. And so I wrote that out, simply to remind myself that this is the sentence that's being negated. It is not the case that things are neat. So this is the paraphrase of the first sentence where I clarified that we are negating the sentence, things are neat. The second sentence is, if he forgot, then things are neat but not clean. So there are a couple things here that I did to clarify the logical structure of this argument. First, we have the personal pronoun he, and I clarified that the person who's meant here is Zug. So I replaced the personal pronoun he by means of Zug. And then I thought about the word forgot. Well, forgetting is not remembering, right? And since we used the word remembering in the first sentence, I replaced forgetting by means of the phrase, it is not the case that Zug remembered, just to make the logical connection between the first sentence and the second sentence transparent. So I paraphrased the part of the sentence, if he forgot, by means of the longer sentence, if it is not the case that Zug remembered to do his chores. And then the final part of the sentence says, then things are neat but not clean. And I again replaced the short word not by means of the longer phrase, it is not the case that. And to remind myself that what's being negated here is the sentence, things are clean, I wrote out this whole sentence. So I replaced the word clean by means of the longer sentence, things are clean. Okay, that's my paraphrase of the second sentence. The third sentence says that, therefore, things are either neat or clean, but not both. The first part of the sentence looks pretty clear to me. Therefore, things are either neat or clean. I just kept that. But then with the second part of the sentence, I spelled that out a little more. So it says, but not both. What was meant, not both what? Well, what's meant is, but it's not the case that things are neat and things are clean. So either things are not neat or things are not clean. And so I wrote this out just to remind myself that this is what it meant by both. It is not the case that things are neat and things are clean. So this is my paraphrase of the original argument that helps me to make the logical structure of what's being said clear. In step 2, we are going on to identify the atomic sentences and to provide a symbolization key for the atomic sentences. So what are the atomic sentences? The first atomic sentence that I notice is, Zug remembered to do his chores. And I see that this sentence appears twice. It also appears in the second line. If it is not the case that Zug remembered to do his chores. So that sentence appears twice. Now, the second atomic sentence that I notice is, things are clean. And that sentence as well appears a couple times. So it also appears in the second premise, things are clean, and it appears in the conclusion, things are clean. 3 occurrences of that atomic sentence. And then the third atomic sentence that I notice is, things are neat. Actually, I also see, I see that twice in the conclusion, and I also see the sentence, things are clean, once again in the conclusion. So the sentence, things are clean, appears 4 times overall. Okay, so those are our atomic sentences, 3 different atomic sentences. Next, we are going to introduce a symbolization key to represent these atomic sentences. I'm going to represent the sentence, Zug remembered to do his chores by means of the capital letter A. And I'm going to symbolize the sentence, things are clean by means of the capital letter B. And I'm going to represent the sentence, things are neat by means of the capital letter C. Okay. That is our symbolization key. 3 atomic sentences, 3 capital letters to represent these sentences. In the next step, we are going to identify the relevant Boolean connectives. Let's start with the first premise. I see the words if, then. If Zug remembered to do his chores, then something else. And that's a conditional, which I'm going to represent by means of this arrow. And then the sentence goes on, but it is not the case that. And I know that but can be represented by means of the conjunction sign. And it is not the case that, of course, is a negation, which I'm going to represent by means of the negation sign. Okay, moving on to premise 2. If it is not the case that, that's obviously a negation. And I see the words if, then, and that's a conditional that I'm going to represent by this arrow. And I again see the word but, which I'm going to represent by means of the conjunction sign. And it is not the case that, of course, again, is a negation. So therefore, things are either clean or neat. That's a disjunction that I need to represent by means of the disjunction sign, but is a conjunction. It is not the case that, that's a negation, and then and, of course, is a conjunction. So these are our relevant Boolean connectives. Okay, let's put it all together and symbolize our argument. The first premise goes like this. If A, then B, and not C. Now you may notice that this string of symbols is actually not a TFL sentence. We need to add some brackets in order to turn this into a TFL sentence. Now the tricky question is, where are these brackets going to go? Well, we have 2 main options. We could either put the brackets around the conditional like this, or, and that is the second option, we could put the brackets around the conjunction like this. Now, what's the right choice here? Well, there is a clear answer to that, and it has to do with this little comma here. We see that there's a comma before the word then, but there's no comma before the word but. And what that tells us is that the whole conjunction, things are clean, but it is not the case that things are neat, that whole conjunction is the consequent of our conditional. And that means that the brackets need to go in the places where they are right now. And so I need to add brackets around this conjunction down here as well. So that's the symbolization of our first premise. Let's move on to the second premise. The second premise goes like this. If it's not the case that A, then C, and not B. And the same question arises. We need to add brackets to turn this into a TFL sentence. Where should we put this bracket? These brackets? And the answer again has to do with the comma. There is a comma before the word then, but no comma before the word but. And that shows us that the consequent of our conditional is this whole long conjunction. Things are neat, but it is not the case that things are clean. And that means that I also need to add brackets around the conjunction down here. Okay, let's look at the conclusion. Therefore, things are either neat or clean, but it is not the case that things are neat and things are clean. I'm going to symbolize this as follows. C or B and not C and B. And again, we need to add a few brackets to turn this into a TFL sentence. And it is pretty clear that first some brackets need to go around this disjunction. And then another pair of brackets needs to go around this conjunction, since what's being negated here is that both things are neat and things are clean. So intuitively, the sentence tells us that either it's not the case that things are neat or it's not the case that things are clean. And so that means that what's negated here is the whole conjunction, things are neat and things are clean. Okay, this is our symbolization of our argument. In the next step, we can move on and construct a truth table for this argument, which is going to allow us to assess its validity.